They say time heals, but some memories don't fade, they just learn to live quietly inside you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my precious ones. My name is Gertrude Sanders, I am 72 years young, and I live in a peaceful little town called Hartsville, Tennessee, where porches are wide, secrets walk slowly, and wisdom grows like wildflowers. These days, my life is calm. I rise before sunrise, brew my coffee strong, just the way life trained me to be, and sit on my porch swing watching the sky stretch open. My garden is full of herbs my aunt taught me to grow: lavender for peace, mint for strength, and rosemary for memory. And oh, how memories bloom when the wind is soft. Every month, my son Matthew visits with his children and grandchildren. The house fills with laughter, muddy little shoes at the door, and the kind of joy that only innocence can bring. My youngest great-granddaughter, sweet Helen, always crawls onto my lap and says, "Grandma, tell me a story." Not the pretty ones. The true ones. Well, my dear viewers, today I am not telling a story. I am opening a wound that took me 60 years to heal. It began on the day I returned home, for the funeral of someone I once loved deeply. The church bells were still ringing when my father looked at me, his voice colder than December frost. "You came back to shame me again, with that bastard of yours." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply said, "He's not a bastard. He's your grandson." I carried that secret for 20 years, until the truth came crawling out like a storm that had been waiting too long. But before we open that chapter, I need to prepare your heart. This is not just a story of pain. It is a story of survival, escape, motherhood, and the kind of strength you never know you have, until it's the only thing you've got left. So tell me in the comments, my darlings. Where are you listening from, and is it morning, noon, or night? I read every single one. Because now, I will begin the story of the girl I used to be. A girl whose life changed forever, at just 11 years old. What happened to me at 11 years old? Some memories don't fade, they wait. Quietly. Patiently. Until one day, something small, a familiar perfume, a door creak, a scent of cedarwood, suddenly opens a door in your mind you thought you sealed forever. I was just 11 when my childhood ended. We lived on a dusty road outside Crossville, near the Tennessee-Kentucky line. Our house was old but full of life, creaking wood floors, quilts my mama stitched by hand, and the sound of chickens scratching in the dirt. My mama, Dorothy, was gentle, always smelling of cinnamon and warm bread. My father, Ernest, well, he was a man of order. Boots lined up, dinner on time, not much laughter, and even less softness. I didn't know what safety felt like. Until I lost it. The day it all began, my uncle Christopher came to live with us. He returned from Memphis, wearing polished shoes, fancy cologne, and a smile people trusted too easily. He brought gifts, fabric for Mama, a toy car for Joshua, a doll for Celine. And for me, something different. A blue satin ribbon. "The prettiest girls don't need diamonds," he said, tying it in my hair. The way he looked at me made my stomach twist. I didn't understand why. But my mother did. From that day on, his visits became more frequent, and more secretive. He'd come by when my father was at the store. He'd always find a reason to get me alone. Show me where the well is, help me fetch firewood, walk with me to the coop. Always away from others. Always with that smile. I didn't have words for what was happening. I only was afraid. Fear that tasted like metal and stayed stuck in my throat. One afternoon, when Mama was at the neighbors, and the house was too quiet, something inside me changed forever. That day, I stopped being a child. I won't share every detail. Some things, for the sake of the heart, are better left between a woman and God. But I will tell you this. He didn't just take my safety. He took my voice. I began to disappear. I stopped laughing. I stopped going outside. I avoided mirrors because I didn't recognize the girl in them. But here's the thing about secrets. They don't stay buried long. Especially not when they come back, in the form of a heartbeat. There are pains you can cry out loud. And there are pains that sit in silence, growing, day by day, inside your very body. Mine was the second kind. Weeks passed. My laughter had gone quiet. My appetite vanished. I stopped playing outside. Mama noticed, mothers always do. But I never spoke. I couldn't. She took me to Mrs. Caldwell, the village nurse, a kind widow who smelled of lavender. She checked my temperature, listened to my heartbeat, then paused. She looked at me differently. Not with medical concern. But with deep, heartbreaking understanding. "Mama," she whispered gently, "she isn't sick." And in that moment, I saw my mother's face fall in a way I had never seen before, as if her heart broke without making a single sound. She turned to me very slowly, her eyes full of pain, and a kind of knowing. "Eva," she said softly, "baby, how long?" I froze. 1,000 words swirled in my throat. But only 2 escaped, as a whisper. "It hurts." Mama didn't ask who. She didn't push. She simply wrapped me in her arms and rocked me, like I was a toddler again, humming songs from when I was still innocent. Life changed after that. She confronted Uncle Christopher. I don't know what was said. I only know that the next morning, he was gone. His shoes, his cologne, his smile, gone. But what he left behind was still inside me. 3 months later, my body began to change, in ways a girl's body should never change at 11 years old. My belly was no longer flat. My dresses didn't fit anymore. I stopped going to school. Some people whispered. Some looked away. Some judged. But only one person stood tall like a pillar, my mother. She protected me fiercely, like a lioness. She fed me, cared for me, prayed for me. And when fear filled my eyes, she'd place my hand on her heart and whisper, "God doesn't abandon broken things. He uses them." And then, on a cold December night, I felt the smallest flutter. A heartbeat inside my heartbeat. Not a burden. Not a curse. But life. I didn't know whether to cry, or to hope. It was a stormy night. Thunder rolled through the hills, shaking our worn wooden house like an old reminder that some storms happen outside, and some happen inside you. I was barely 12 when my storm broke. Mama had laid quilts on the floor of her room. There were no doctors, no nurses, just faith, trembling hands, and warm water in a metal bowl. Our neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, held my hand, whispering psalms under her breath. I don't remember pain as much as I remember fear. Because the pain was only in my body. But the fear was in my soul. Between the waves of pain, I looked at Mama. Her eyes were red, full of tears she wouldn't let fall. She kept smiling at me, even when her heart was clearly breaking. "Breathe, darling. God is with us," she whispered. At 2:17 a.m., my storm ended. And a new life began. A tiny cry, softer than the rain outside, filled the room. She was so small. So fragile. Wrapped in Grandma's old crochet blanket. Her fingers curled around Mama's thumb. Not mine, because I was too afraid to hold her. I was afraid of her. Afraid of what she meant. Afraid of what she reminded me of. Mama didn't ask me to hold her. She simply sat next to me, gently rocking the baby in her arms. Then, she laid the baby beside me. "She belongs to you," Mama whispered. But she doesn't belong to your pain. I turned away. But Mama wasn't finished. You may not be ready to be her mother, she said softly, but you are already her story. Those words settled deep in my heart, deeper than any pain had ever reached. For the first time, I looked at her. Really looked. She didn't look like him. She didn't look like hurt, or shame, or fear. She looked like new. That night, something changed. Not suddenly. Not magically. But quietly, like dawn. I didn't instantly become strong. I didn't suddenly forget. But I felt something new for the first time since it all began. Hope. She didn't erase the hurt. But she gave it meaning. I named her Lily, because lilies grow in places people don't expect beauty to bloom. Lily didn't grow up like other children. She didn't have picture-perfect birthdays, matching baby clothes, or beautifully framed photos on the wall. What she did have was love. A love that was messy, uncertain, imperfect. But real. For months, I didn't call myself her mother. I felt too young. Too wounded. Too unprepared. I fed her. I held her. I watched her sleep. But I didn't feel like I belonged to her, or she to me. One day, when Lily was about 6 months old, Mama handed her to me and said, "Hold her close. Not like you're afraid. Not like she's a memory. But like she's a promise." I held Lily, really held her. She looked up at me with those big, wondering eyes, not knowing anything about the world, or pain, or secrets. She only knew warmth. And arms. And heartbeat. Something changed that day. She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't just happen on your lips, but somewhere deeper. Somewhere that makes broken things soften. I didn't cry. I exhaled. It was like a part of me that I'd been holding tight, finally let go. The past had taken so much from me, my safety, my voice, my innocence. But it had not taken my future. Not unless I allowed it to. I could not choose what had happened to me. But I could choose what happened next. That day, I made a decision. To stop being the victim of my story. And start being the author. I didn't become a perfect mother. But I became a present one. Mama always said, "Life doesn't ask if you're ready. It just arrives, and asks if you're willing." I was willing. But Lily gave me something no one else could. Purpose. She became the reason I got up in the morning. The reason I fought. The reason I believed that, even after darkness, light still exists. And now, decades later, when I see her laughing with her little girl, my granddaughter, I know something for certain. My story didn't end in pain. It began in pain. But it ended in love. Because healing doesn't always mean forgetting. Sometimes, healing means building something beautiful, even with broken pieces.